Today, we're going to amp up our CloudTrail by making it an organization trail. As we talked about when we covered CloudTrail before, it does have the ability to record log files throughout our entire organization. And we've been setting things up over the past couple of labs. We created a destination S3 bucket in our security audit account. Actually, going back further, we created the security audit account because that's where we're going to keep logs for kind of all of our security tools. What we're going to do today is a quick review of how CloudTrail works in an organization. Then we're going to go into our CloudTrail and we're going to redirect it and update it to be an organization trail. So we actually get to edit and update the one we already made in our management account, now extend it out to our the rest of our organization. There's some really cool features of how this works, which is why it's so incredibly valuable. Let me go ahead to the whiteboard to talk about this. And this one's nice because we already talked about what CloudTrail is, so I don't need to go into the details of what CloudTrail itself does. But let me switch here to get to my right little drawing place. And yep, all right, I'm on the right page. What we have right now is our management account. And then within our management account, we established a trail. That's recording all of the API calls that are made inside of that management account. Now, the way that that actually works, and we kind of talked about that before, is that's actually created a trail in all the different regions of that management account. So we've been using Oregon, and it gets its trail, Oregon, close enough. We have Virginia. I know some of you are going to go to therapy for my handwriting. That's fine. I'm in it for, I don't know, help therapists make more money. We have like Frankfurt and whatever other ones that are out there. I don't know. Let's go with Sydney today. And those are just examples of the regions. Remember, I think there's 17 default regions, but there's more than that. And all of these different regions are all saving their CloudTrail into one S3 bucket that's still within our management account. Well, if we move a little bit over here, what we also created was our security audit account. And within our security audit account, we have a different S3 bucket that we have set up, and we put on a resource-based policy that's going to allow access. What we're going to do now is it's literally a checkbox. It says, make this an organization trail. And when I do that, that trail, even though its home is still going to be in the management account, it's actually going to save all of its logs into the S3 bucket that's in that sub account. And this account, the management account, will have access to go ahead and read those log files. Now, what's interestingly enough is we're not giving anybody else access yet. We will get to that in a future lab. But what is occurring here is when we create this as an organization trail, imagine we have all of these other accounts within AWS. And organizations trails are great because what happens is that every one of these will have a trail running locally, gathering its local events, shipping those off to the S3 bucket. But they're doing all of that by looping through. Maybe if I change colors here, I'll do black. It loops through the management account into that S3 bucket because these don't have direct access because of the way we set up our permissions. This is where things get really interesting. I cannot turn off that trail in these accounts. The org account, management account trail in the organization will collect CloudTrail from every one of these accounts. Now, if you log in, and I'll show you what this looks like, you'll actually be able to see that that trail is up there in there and running, but that management account is going to override. This means that even if somebody has root account access in one of these accounts, they cannot turn off that CloudTrail. That CloudTrail is always going to be running, so we're always going to have access. Now, if there's a root account, they could disconnect from the main org, which is why we make sure nobody can even use the root account. So this gives us a lot of benefits. When we have an organization CloudTrail set, that means that we are gathering CloudTrail from every single account and every single region, and it's all being stored in that single S3 bucket. So I have centralized logging, even if I expand out to thousands of accounts. And remember, with CloudTrail, at least at the basics, you get one for free. You would have to pay if you added more of those. Although at a certain point, you do run into S3 storage charges. That's something to watch out for in very large organizations. But we will have all of those log files from all of those different accounts and all of those regions fully centralized and stored in one place. And it's done in a way that even if an attacker breaks in one of those other accounts, unless they remove the account from the organization, and if you recall, we have service control policies to protect against that we put in place early in our organization, they're not going to be able to turn off CloudTrail. If they actually go and use the API call to disable trail, it's not going to work because that trail lives in the management account and they don't have any permissions in the management account. Really powerful for centralized logging. Make sure that we're not going to lose any of that activity. Not a whole lot else to say. A couple of things is that sometimes you might still want an account within one of those other accounts, like if you want to give more local access. One of the problems of storing all of this centrally is, as we saw last week, our resource-based policy doesn't give anyone access if they need to go into the S3 logs to look at that activity. They do still get 90 days of activity within the event history that's within the console and is available via API. So we're going to look at that. But first, we're going to go into our accounts. We're going to go ahead and make an org account. We're going to redirect it to our S3 bucket. And I'm going to show you a few more things about CloudTrail. We're going to do labs for a few more weeks and do a bunch of other things. We're actually going to come back to this so that I can actually teach you what those logs look like and different things you might look for in those if you ever have an incident. All right, let's jump into the lab. As a review, in the last lab, we went ahead and we wrote our resource-based policy and we applied that to our S3 bucket, even though we didn't actually turn CloudTrail on yet. What we're going to do this week is go ahead and create an organization trail, or we're going to edit our existing trail, make it an organization trail, and save it across accounts into that S3 bucket in our security audit account. All right. To get started, the first thing we will need is the name of that S3 bucket. And real quick review, this is what the policy we looked at or we built last week looks like. And that was the resource policy that we applied. Now I want to switch roles again, and I just want to get you used to switching roles to assuming roles in other accounts into that security audit account. Remember, if you ever get lost, you can go back into organizations, pull that account ID, and the role we're using is always called the organization account access role. So if you go to switch role from here, you would put the account ID there, organization account access role there, and then the name of the account, or just whatever you want to refer to it. You can see that if you see my working computer, you'll see I have a lot that are named to that as I'm just quickly temporarily going into accounts. All right, but I'm going to cancel that. Double check I am in my security audit account. Go to S3. And our life's going to be easy today because we only have one bucket. So I have my one bucket, and I can just copy this name out right here. That's all I need is that name. Take that, copy it. I don't need the full Amazon resource name. I just need the bucket's name for what we're doing today. Then, and remember, by the way, the reason this works is bucket names are globally unique. There's going to be, I don't need my account ID or anything else. It knows that that is globally unique. It's just anytime we write these in IAM policies, it wants the actual ARN because policies just look, the parser reads Amazon resource names. Now, you'll notice something interesting here. So this is 87S is the last characters. I'm going to switch back to my management account. There's no color tag here anymore. That's how I know I'm in my management account. I just happen to know that that's my ID, 2017. Hey, that's the year I joined the 501st Legion. Oh, personal stuff. We'll get to that later. No, we won't get to that. All right. You can see I have a different bucket, and it's not 87S at the end, it's A81. This is my original bucket. This is where all of my logs are going currently. I don't need this for anything. It's just to show you that even as you switch accounts, really important to keep a track of what account you're in. Because our CloudTrail is in our management account, that's where we have to make these changes. I'll go into CloudTrail. And by the way, if you make a mistake, let's close these extra boxes out, you'll know pretty quickly. If I click on this, my trails and my default trail, I'm in my management account, I can see everything. If I switch back to that security audit account, see, I get errors. It is actually, there is a trail that exists here, but it's just not going to be the same trail because it's managed out of the management account. All right. Actually, there's no trail here yet because I have not enabled organizations. I'll get back to that piece. We're going to go back to management account, and I know I'm in the right one because I actually have trails. This next change is going to be easy, and then I'm just going to show you a couple of things in CloudTrail. I'm going to click Edit for my default trail. 2 clicks. Well, 2 things to change. Enable for all accounts in my organization. Then my trail bucket name, pasting in that new one that I created that's in my security audit account. Now, the only reason this is going to work is we did all the permissions in that resource-based policy. We said this CloudTrail and only this CloudTrail through the CloudTrail service is allowed to save things into this bucket. That was the translation of the rules in that bucket policy. And we can pull that back up again. And you can see all over, this is where we're going to save our logs. That's the new S3 bucket, that 87S. But the only thing allowed to save those logs there is something with the ARN that is of our CloudTrail. And that's that extra piece of security to make sure that only our CloudTrail can save to our S3 bucket. Done. Click Save Changes. Cross my fingers that there's no errors. I was actually getting some earlier today when I was building this. I was hitting some capacity issues in Amazon. That's all up and running. And I know it's up and running because now, if I click over to that security audit, let's see if it propagated already. Boom, you see, I'm in my security audit. Before I didn't have the CloudTrail. Now this organization trail is here. Cool. Guess what? I can't hit that edit button. This trail was created by the management account for your organization. You cannot edit or delete it unless you're logged in from that account, from our management account. We will actually later learn about delegated administration, which would allow us to make some changes here, but we can't make any of those or allow us to make changes to this trail, not from here, but we can't touch it right now. Let's take a look at what we can see. Now, in the security audit account, I can get into that S3 bucket. I'm going to open it in a new tab, pop that open because this account owns that bucket. I can see what's inside of it, nice and clean. But again, understanding the permissions. If I click on and go back to my management account, remember, the only rule we set is that the management account is only CloudTrail in the management account is allowed access to this S3 bucket. Nobody else in the management account is allowed access. It's only that CloudTrail service. That's that permission policy. So that's another cool example of how everything is least privilege in AWS. And when we set our policies correctly, we're all locked down. Let's go back over to CloudTrail. And when I'm in CloudTrail, you might wonder, well, if I can't get to the logs, how can I actually see the activity? I can go to event history. This will show me all of the activity, at least within the same region. It would look a little bit differently if I switch regions, but you can see the API calls like update trail. And if I look at my update trail API call, it actually is giving me all the changes that I made. Everything is in here if you wanted to read through it all. And the event history gives us locally access even if I can't get to the S3 bucket. Now I'm going to go back to my management account. And remember, From the management account, we weren't able to get into that S3 bucket because that lives in a different account. And only CloudTrail has access to that with that because of that resource-based policy. Technically, there's ways we can get to it through the admin, but I won't. Again, I'm not going to go into that right now. But I can still go here into the event history, and I can always see my event history in that account. That's always available locally in the account you're operating in and in the region you're operating in, even if you are not in the account where the CloudTrail lives. I hope that's not too confusing. As a reminder, when we enable an organization CloudTrail, it's turning on CloudTrail and all of those other accounts. But if I'm logged into one of those accounts, I can't change anything about the CloudTrail. And I can't access the S3 bucket because the permissions are set to really lock down that S3 bucket where those logs are stored. But CloudTrail itself, if you have permissions to read the event history, you can always do that in your account because that's stored in AWS outside of that S3 bucket. This is just part of the CloudTrail service. So this is reading it directly from the service. The limit is right up here. You only get 90 days of these. That's why we saved to S3. You have more activity. You can read more, see more activity. It centralizes it across all accounts in all regions, and we can keep our data there for more than 90 days. All right, hit me up if you have any questions. Now that we're bouncing around accounts or doing centralized services and different kinds of things running in different places, it can be a little more confusing, but I just want to make sure you all understand that. And last 30 seconds of simplifying all of this, we started by CloudTrail is always giving you 90 days of activity. When we create a trail, that allows us to save that someplace and in an S3 bucket. When we create an organization trail, it turns that on for every account in every region in our organization and saves all of those results to the S3 bucket. But when you go into the event history, you're only seeing what's in your current account and your current region. If you want to see more than that, then you have to go to that bucket where all of that activity is saved. That's it. Have a great week.